Is it? But we need microphones? Does it have Okay. How about we just do this like really quick? I'll be like, I'm Freddie Lancia, and this. I'm Freddie Lancia, and this. Because it's weird because the video's there too.
I don't think you should do this.
I'm Freddie Lancia.
Tyler.
No, okay. So we do it like we'll do it together. I'm Freddie Lancia, and you say.
And what do I say?
You say.
You didn't tell me what to say.
I'm Tyler, and this is the Post Definitions podcast.
It's so awkward.
Do you want to start the conversation? So Tyler, you were saying that your morality is an important part of who you are, your self-identity.
I suppose so. I think probably I have the idea that if I'm a good person, life will work out better. And so, yeah, I suppose that's my goal, is to try and be a good person.
Is that a good reason to be a good person? Is that a good reason, like a morally good reason to be a good person?
I mean, it's probably not the best, but it's a good place to start, I suppose. Like I said, I was saying earlier, I don't think I'm a good person yet, but I'm trying to be. At some point, I'll have a better reason.
Uh-huh. So it's kind of like, if you are a bad person, the thing to do is try to be a good person for bad reasons, and eventually you'll just be a good person. You'll be being a good person for good reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose that's my approach for everything. It's like, if you want to be good at something, you got to be shit at it first, right? And so I'm not good at being a good person yet, but eventually I will be.
Yeah, but the difference is that being a good person often has so much to do with the reasons for being a good person, whereas like being a good basketball player doesn't have anything to do with your reasons necessarily.
I mean, that's debatable. Yeah. You know, I kind of try and take a pragmatic approach to things. So I don't think the reason matters so much as the results.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like, you know, I think if I'm a good person for bad reasons, that's fine if I'm doing good, right?
Uh-huh.
It's better than not being a good person. Well, I think this is like something we were talking about earlier about, say, like the Nazis or the communists, right? May have believed that they were doing good, right? But ultimately, the results were not good. They were bad.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately, probably good is not sustainable without good reasons for it, right?
Right.
It's probably both important, but ultimately, I don't know. You know, easing suffering is I think the main goal, and how you get there is important, but less important.
Yeah, I agree. I think in practice, you kind of need both to have good intentions and good outcomes to be a good person, generally speaking.
Yeah, and I think also, having good reasons actually probably makes it easier and contributes to it, because say, like, part of being a good person, I would say, is the ability to love people unconditionally, right? Because loving people conditionally can make you do bad things, right? If you want or need or expect things from people and they don't meet your expectations or don't give you what you want, you may be motivated to take it out on them, right? And so, yeah, maybe if you're motivated selfishly, like that presents barriers to being a good person. But yeah, like I said, I'm trying to figure it out. I don't exactly know what it means to be a good person. Figuring it out.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming that I know, not assuming that I'm a good person, but trying to get there, trying to figure it out.
Definitely. Do you think that being a good person in that kind of relationship, an unconditional love relationship, having unconditional love is objectively good for a relationship, or can it result in, harm for yourself, for your own relationship?
I'm not sure. I think, when you have conditional love, I think that causes issues. I think, the person may be afraid not of living up to your conditions. You get upset when they don't live up to your conditions. Like, this can cause issues. I would say just because you have unconditional love for someone doesn't mean you need to be in a relationship with them.
Yeah, get you. Should you have unconditional love for everyone?
Possibly. I mean, I think that's something that'd be worth figuring out. I suppose a lot of my ideas on this are influenced by different religions. I think they said Christ has unconditional love for everyone, and the idea, I think, in Buddhism is to have unconditional love for everyone. But that doesn't mean accepting all of their behavior. That doesn't mean that if somebody's not good for you, that you need to interact with them.
Right. What do you think it does to someone when they receive unconditional love?
I think it depends on the person, right? Some people have a hard time accepting that. Some people don't know what unconditional love is, right? If you've never experienced it, you may assume that people want something from you. Or if every relationship you've ever had has been conditional, right? Why would you expect that somebody coming out of the blue and wanting to do things for you without wanting anything in return? That doesn't make any sense. Obviously they want something in return, right? That's how everybody works. If that's what you've learned.
Yeah, very true. How can you overcome that? How can you prove yourself, or do you need to?
So as the person who wants to love someone unconditionally?
Yeah.
I think it's just to actually do it, right? Like, to continue to be there for them regardless of what they do, whether they accept it or not.
Yeah. Do you have an example of what unconditional love could look like in practice?
Well, so the way that I've tried to practice this, right, is, so in the past, I think I've mostly experienced and expected or practiced conditional love, right, where it's dependent on what people can do for me. And if people don't treat me the way that I expect them to, I'll get angry or upset or whatever. And what I've been trying to do is practice for friends, especially those who I feel like could use it, is to be there for them regardless of what they can do for me. Right? Like, I have friends who have basically nothing to offer me except maybe their time. Yeah, I mean, it feels good just to be there for them and never to get anything from them is fine.
Yeah, that's really cool. So if you're trying to make a big change about yourself, you're trying to become a good person, you're trying to be able to love unconditionally, what do you need to change? I know you're interested in the idea of the subconscious, and I think that definitely plays a big role in this process of really changing who you are and the reasons why you do things. Can you explain maybe how the subconscious plays a role in this process?
Yeah, so I suppose like kind of what I try to do is practice mindfulness. I think that's how maybe you could describe it, is I try and just be aware of my mental state, my emotional state, and all that. So especially the, sort of the easiest thing to notice is when I'm getting angry with someone. And it's really easy to give into anger, because you feel like it's justified or whatever. But what I try to do is I try to take a step back when I'm feeling angry and be like, okay, what does this say about me? And most of the time it does say something about me that I'm thinking about the situation wrong. And so now, I see anger as an opportunity to change. And not just anger, I suppose, like any sort of negative emotion, I feel like is an opportunity. I feel like anxiety is an opportunity. When I'm feeling any sort of bad way, I try and think about why that would be and what I can change about myself. I take those opportunities.
Yeah, that's really wise and not easy to do. What do you think about doing similar reflecting on positive emotions? What can be gained from that?
I think there is some. I think it's difficult because especially with positive emotions, you just want to experience those. You don't want to have to be like, okay, maybe this is wrong. But there have been, I think, times where I suppose I've reflected after the fact. Usually it's like, sometimes things are going really well and I get the idea that, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know what's going on. It's like, I'm very smart. Like, things are going my way because I know what to do. And then, like sometimes things come crashing down. And that's when the negative emotion comes. And then, maybe instead of reflecting on the negative emotion that comes after that, you reflect on that positive emotion. Be like, okay, I let that get the best of me. I became prideful. And it felt good, but it was wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I was thinking more about like, about times when I felt good and I just found it funny because I knew like, oh, I feel really good right now, but I know I have no reason to. And I kind of just had fun with that. Like, I was just like, you know what? I'm, and there it's like, oh yeah, I know this is just kind of like me being emotional and sort of, getting emotions out of something that doesn't really exist. And I just like, I'm just a silly human, but there's your example is so much more like how positive emotion can lead to negative emotion, and lead to like negative consequences, which is probably, that's the kind that is good to reflect on, I suppose. But I think it's also good to notice like how, your emotions can be in a way incorrect, if you can say, like based in nothing, and then you can apply that to when you feel down and you're like, you know what, I know that this is also based in irrationality and I shouldn't just wallow in it and assume that I have a real reason to feel this way.
So maybe perhaps like I was saying, reflecting on positive emotion while feeling negative, you can reflect on negative emotion while feeling positive as well.
Yeah. I like to personally take a third person sort of perspective on my emotions and just kind of like when I'm feeling down, also find that kind of funny, because I'm like, and that helps me, step away and not be so in my in the eyes of my emotions.
So detaching.
Yeah,
a little
I
bit.
guess so.
That I think detaching is also a really good strategy. Another way that I deal with, say, negative emotion is sometimes to almost talk to it, right? There's a poem by Rumi that I really like. I think it's called Inviting Mara to Tea. And basically the poem is about, when you're feeling down, not trying to fight it, not trying to suppress negative emotion, not trying to get rid of it, but just allowing it to come, but not identifying with it.
Yeah.
So basically just sitting with it, observing it, but not having it be a part of you.
Yeah. I get that a lot. Like, for instance, feeling things can be an important part and a good part of life, feeling all the things that life has. So when I feel sad, when I feel pain, like holding on to that and being like, oh, this is a unique opportunity to feel this, and I'm not going to search this out, but I can have a positive perspective about generally negative feelings and emotions as long as they, aren't so bad. And sometimes sadness can be one of my favorite emotions, like to cry and like just feel this kind of, I don't know, sometimes it can be quite a joyful feeling, I guess, when you have the right perspective about it. And it's the same thing with like laughter. You could not enjoy that, you could not enjoy certain positive feelings, pleasures, right?
Yeah, and I think this sort of ties back to something we were discussing earlier about experiencing things voluntarily. Like we were talking about going out and like experiencing things like, externally, but you can do the same thing internally. Like if you voluntarily bring up memories that are upsetting to you or things that make you anxious or whatever, that is part of what helps you to process it, rather than if you're trying to force these things away and they come to you involuntarily, like you have unpleasant memories and you're doing everything you can to not think about them.
Yeah, definitely.
They continue to haunt you.
So do you think it's a good practice to seek out your fears and seek out the things that are unpleasant to you?
Yes, 100%. And I think this is partially the point of prayer, is when you're praying, you often bring up the things that you're anxious about voluntarily.
Maybe therapy as well. And
yeah, I mean, I don't have any experience with therapy.
Yeah, me neither. But I have a feeling that some of our listeners don't have much experience with prayer, but maybe they have experience with other forms of this, speaking with their friends about their issues and seeing them come to the surface. Kind of like maybe some of the viewers or you have had the experience of hearing about something you relate to, and then you all of a sudden are like, whoa, this is something I'm allowed to face. Like, this is some feeling I'm allowed to have. This is something that other people have, and then you can face it yourself a little bit easier.
Another thing is, I think it's really helpful. What's really helpful for people, and this is kind of like a therapeutic thing as well, is getting people to talk about the things that are bothering them, and just listening, and not giving them any sort of advice or suggestions or anything, just letting them talk about it. Because talking about things is like how you think. Like in the process of them just telling you things, they might figure something out for themselves. Also, if there's things that maybe they feel ashamed of, if they are able to tell it to you and you don't, you're not taken aback by it or disturbed by it, they're like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad.
Yeah, I also think you're good at asking the right questions to help people get to the bottom of what they need to say. Do you have any thoughts about how to formulate those questions?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's sort of like, what am I interested in? I mean, this is sort of a difficult thing, I think, because a lot of times when people are telling you really difficult things, it can be very uncomfortable, and maybe you don't want to hear it. I think over time, I've gotten more comfortable with that. So, as far as I'm comfortable with, I suppose, there are things maybe I won't ask about because it's just too much. But as much as I can, I'll ask about the things that I think need to be thought about. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think this is, sort of the job of a therapist, probably.
For sure.
I think it's probably a bad idea for people to get the idea that they can just be a therapist, right? Like,
So how do you distinguish what you're saying from therapy? Like, how do you distinguish this whole listening and being someone who is willing to let them speak?
I think I just think it's a bad idea to get too much into it's a bad idea to get too much into the idea that you can help somebody, right? Because you don't know if you can, and you shouldn't assume that you can. But yeah, being able to listen to somebody is better than nothing. Like, probably therapy is better than just your friend, but a friend is better than nothing.
But in some cases, do you think a friend can be better because they're a friend? Like, you get what I mean? Like, there's someone who's there voluntarily because they love you.
Right. I mean, it just depends. It depends on the friends. Like, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the intentions of the friend, all this stuff. Like, I'm saying, like, it's possible, right? But it's it can also go it can also go the wrong way. I think this is especially, I mean, it's just something to be cautious of. And yeah, especially, like, say, in relationships, people can get this idea. It's not like it can happen. Like, some people can do it, but I don't know. I think it can go wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you for your thoughts. I think that we really dug into a lot of interesting topics that are really relevant to a lot of our lives, but we probably don't spend enough time really digging in and I don't know, uncovering our subconscious and how that plays a role. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much, Tyler, for your time and your thoughts.
Yeah, no problem.
So, see you next time on the Post Definitions Podcast.